So our brain intelligence is looking at things either in an imbalanced way, which opens our heart and empowers us, or an imbalanced way, which closes our heart and makes us go into our animal nature and seek and avoid and get into emotions. In all probability in your life, you've had moments when you have been infatuated with somebody and put somebody on a pedestal. That could be somebody that you think is smarter than you, somebody that's more successful than you in business, or you think they are anyway. It's your perception of it. You perceive they have more wealth. You perceive that they have a more stable relationship. You perceive that they have more social savvy or more empowerment or bigger influence, bigger leads. You have a more physically fit or more attractive, possibly, or more inspired. Anytime you minimize yourself to somebody else, put them on a pedestal, and to minimize yourself in comparison, you throw yourself off. If you exaggerate them, you'll tend to minimize you. And this leads to sort of a dysmorphic perspective of yourself. You can also look down on somebody and look at somebody and think, well, I'm more intelligent than they are. They're really dumb. I'm more successful than they are, more achieving than they. I have more wealth than they. I have a better relationship or have a greater social influence or maybe physically more beautiful or attractive, or maybe more inspired and more clear about my spiritual path. And anytime you look down on somebody and put them down, you'll tend to exaggerate yourself. Anytime you exaggerate yourself looking down on people or minimize yourself looking up to people, you're going to go into pride or shame or exaggerations or minimizations of self and not be yourself. You're not balanced, you're not centered, you're not really you. You're actually minimizing or exaggerating you. The most magnificent you'll ever be is you. Nobody can compete with you, but if you minimize yourself, you'll try to compete with others. If you exaggerate yourself, they'll have to try to compete with you. But if you're just being yourself, there's no competition. Nobody can be you. So the second we're centered and we're balanced in our perspective, we empower ourselves. That's our first principle. Now, this occurs in any of those areas of life. And I've had this happen in my own life, throughout my life, where I meet somebody and I think, wow, they're amazing. And I'll feel intimidated by them. I know many times people who are frightened about public speaking. It's not the fear of speaking. They speak all the time. It's the fear of speaking in front of somebody you think is more intelligent or more successful or more wealthy or more together than you. So anytime you minimize yourself, you'll tend to inject their values into your life and try to live in their values instead of your own. And anytime you look down on somebody, you'll tend to project your values onto them. Anytime you try to live in other people's values or try to get other people to live in your values, you're going to have futility, because every decision you or they make is based on whatever you think will give you the greatest advantage or disadvantage to your own values. The same for them. So trying to get them to live in your values or trying to get you to live in other people's values is a disempowering state. So the first thing is to realize that as long as you put people above you or people below you, you put them on pedestals or in pits, and don't put them in your heart, you're going to disempower yourself, and you actually help disempower other people. And people want to be loved and appreciated for who they are, and not these exaggerated or minimized states. Now, what happens is, if I went up to you and I said to you, you're always nice, never mean, always kind, never cruel, always positive, never negative, always giving, never taking, always generous, never stingy, always considerate, never inconsiderate, always peaceful, never wrathful, and always positive, never negative. If I was to state that about you, your bullshit meter would go off and say, that's not true. And if I said to you, you're always negative, you're never positive, you're always cruel, you're never kind, you're always mean, you're never nice, you're always taking, never giving, always stingy, never generous, always wrathful, never peaceful, always negative, never positive, your bullshit meter would go off again and say, no, that's not me either. But if I said to you, sometimes you're nice, sometimes you're mean, sometimes you're kind, sometimes you're cruel, sometimes you're positive, sometimes you're negative, sometimes you're generous, sometimes you're stingy, sometimes you're peaceful, sometimes you're wrathful, you'd immediately go, yeah. You would have certainty that that's true, but you can never have certainty about either of those other two polarities. We never have certainty in life as long as we're exaggerating or minimizing ourselves. We only have certainty when we're being ourselves, when we're not trying to puff ourselves up or deflate ourselves. Inflation or deflation of self, exaggeration or minimization of self, self-righteous, self-raunchous, inflated or deflated, puffed up with pride or shamed. Neither of those are the true self, and they're disempowering. Anything that you're infatuated with that minimizes you occupies space and time in your mind and runs you. You're not running you, it's running you. Your perception of it's running you. And anytime you see more drawbacks and benefits and have more resentment to something, that occupies space and time in your mind and runs you. So you're not running you, the thing around you is running you that you're resenting. So anytime you infatuate or resent, anytime you're proud or shamed as a compensation, you're automatically out of your power. And you're not in your heart. We have a gut intelligence, a brain intelligence, and a heart intelligence. Whenever we're exaggerating and minimizing, we're in an infatuation, resentment, we're in a prey seeking or predator avoiding impulse or instinct state, and we're in our gut. And then that gut is meant for survival and for eating and survival and reproducing, etc. But it's not about self-actualization. It's only when we're in our heart. So our brain intelligence is looking at things either in an imbalanced way, which opens our heart and empowers us, or an imbalanced way, which closes our heart and makes us go into our animal nature and seek and avoid and get into emotions that basically are animalistic: prey, predator, seek, avoid, impulse, instinct, infatuation, resentment. The second we cause an imbalance in our perception, we disempower ourselves. Now, what's interesting is, if we're infatuated and we see more similarities and differences, and we see more pleasures and pains, and we see more positives and negatives, we're actually dividing our consciousness, our full consciousness, up into half. We're conscious of the positives that support our values. We're unconscious of the negatives that challenge our values when we're infatuated. We're blind to the downside and only aware of the upside. When we're resentful, we're conscious of the downsides, the things that are different that we resent, and unconscious of the upsides, the positive sides. Both of these split our consciousness up. Anytime we infatuate, resent, anytime we put people on pedestals or pits, anytime we minimize ourselves or exaggerate ourselves, we divide our consciousness up into conscious and unconscious halves and disempower. And whenever we infatuate with, we're too humble to admit what we see in them is inside us. We disown it and disempower ourselves that way. And we're resenting, we're too proud to admit what we see in them is inside us. And again, we're now in disempowered state. So anytime we are lopsided in perception and disempowered in our perception like that, and dividing our full conscious into conscious and unconscious halves, we gave away our power. And it's nothing to do with anything except our perception. Our lives are based on our perception. We have control over our perceptions, our decisions, and actions in life, because as long as we have an imbalanced perspective, we're going to disempower our life. Every weekend, around the world, I teach a program called the Breakthrough Experience. And every week I have people coming in there with infatuations, resentments of themselves and the people around them, their spouses, their parents, their bosses, whoever. It could be anybody. But as long as those things are imbalanced, they're disempowering themselves and they're disowning parts of themselves. And I say in the program, the Breakthrough Experience, that at the level of the essence of your soul, nothing's missing in you. But at the level of the existence of your senses, things appear to be missing in you. And whatever you think is missing in you, that you're too humble or too proud to admit that you see in others inside yourself, you automatically disempower yourself.
Thank you for joining me for this presentation today. If you found value out of the presentation, please go below and please share your comments. We certainly appreciate that feedback. And be sure to subscribe and hit the notification icons. That way I can bring more content to you and share more to help you maximize your life. I look forward to our next presentation. Thank you so much for joining.